Hi, I'm Dr. Safaya, email marketing strategist and educator, and I am committed to making email marketing simple and profitable for you through my online email marketing school, Safaya Learning Hall. You can find the link in the show notes. Fun fact, I'm an obstetrician gynecologist resident in training. Yes, I'm an actual practicing medical doctor. Email marketing experiments was born out of the desire to share behind the scenes of failed and successful email marketing campaigns. Simply put, what we've tried, not just me, but me and every guest I bring on the show, what we've tried that has worked or didn't work. So instead of just thinking it and testing it, we're committed to also sharing the BTS with you on this podcast. Come join us behind the scenes. And one more thing, as you listen, if you're a freelancer, service provider, or business owner, go ahead and check the show notes for the gift I kept for you. You'll find it under the title Gift. Now let's go behind the scenes. Hi, listeners. Welcome back to Email Marketing Experiments. And I'm totally excited for today's episode. Now, before I tell you who our guest is, let me drop some fun facts, some of them that would have you questioning things and wondering if it's really possible, because we'll be diving into how all of this has happened today. Our guest has been podcasting since 2015. He has 1.2 million downloads. He does an audio only podcast, no video content at all. And he is on only one. Now, this was the one that I had to struggle with. He's on only one social media platform, Thread. He has released a podcast episode every week since 2015 without ever missing a week. And the one that just blew my mind is that he has sent out a weekly newsletter every week since 2018 without ever missing a week. 52 weeks every year since 2018, a newsletter has gone out. I'm talking about no other person than Adam Schaeuble, the online business coach for podcasters. He teaches podcasters simple strategies to help them grow their audience and turn their content into new clients. I mean, I'm a podcaster and I have learned a lot of things from just the tips he shares on threads and the answers he gives to people's questions. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Adam. Welcome.
Dr. Sapphire, what a an introduction. That was fantastic. I've probably been on 500 podcasts as a guest, and that was one of the top introductions I've ever had. So thank you for having me on the show.
I'm glad. You're welcome. So, I mean, I know I've told a bit about, what you do, who you are, but I'd love our guests to get to meet you, get to know you. So, can you tell us your story briefly?
Yeah, so I've always been an entrepreneur. I graduated college and I opened up a fitness company where I owned a fitness facility, and that got launched in 2009. I started podcasting in 2015 with a health-based podcast. Kind of fell in love with podcasting and online business and content creation. And then I grew that audience and started writing newsletters along with that as well. That's where I started learning email marketing. And then I transitioned into a business show in 2018 with Podcasting Business School. And that's when I also started writing my business-based newsletter as well. I sold my gym at the end of 2019, and I've been a full-time content entrepreneur ever since then.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's a lot of interesting things. Now, I'm really curious about a number of things that you shared with me, and I don't want to jump the gun and all of that, right? So let me ask you this question. If you were to give email marketing a job description, a JD, a role in your business today, what would you say it does?
See, I don't even describe it as email marketing. The way that I do it, I view it as a love letter to my audience. It's a connection point. And yeah, do I make sales and do I use it as my lead magnet? Yes. It fills all those roles. But to me, it's about connection. Like I want to actually connect to these people on the other end of that email to the point that they are excited to get that email, absorb the information, and then respond to me and have a conversation because they know I'm available for that. So to me, it's a direct through line of connection to my audience.
Okay. I think I like that. I mean, we do talk about using email for building community, getting clients, But I like that you hone down on that connection and then it has like a ripple effect of helping you do all these other things that you want to do. So we have this tradition here on the podcast. We call it Open Rates Confession, where you share your biggest email marketing mistake, the worst thing that ever happened, something that made you, question why you were doing this. I mean, for some people, it even made them cry, it could be that bad. Hopefully not. But yeah, what's yours?
Okay, this is quite an embarrassing confession that I've never made publicly before. I was learning how to use like the tagging system, and this is back when I did have lead magnets, where I was like, "Oh, tag them as a podcaster, or tag them." It's when I had a couple different brands going on, and I had this one lead magnet that I thought I was tagging people as podcasters, and they were going to get my podcasting email, but I forgot to set up that tag, and I was running ads to this lead magnet. So basically, I got all of these people on my list, and none of them were getting emails from me because I didn't set up the tag correctly. So I spent a significant amount of money. I eventually figured it out and had to run back and go, "Hey, sorry, you haven't heard from me in a year, but now I'm here." So I eventually figured it out and we got it fixed, but that was very embarrassing.
I can imagine, and not to mention the time and energy that you had put into it, and then it's like, ugh, I feel that.
We all make mistakes,
Oh,
though. That's a part of learning.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm curious. You mentioned that you learned email marketing. I find that interesting, as a business coach and all of that. So, what was your learning email marketing experience like? Was it like learning on the job, taking a course, or how?
So when I had my health podcast, I actually took a course from Amy Porterfield. When Amy Porterfield first got started, she was only focused on Facebook ads. And then she became focused on lead magnets. And this was like the second little micro jump she had made back in the day, like over a decade ago. So I took her email lead magnet course. And that's when I started learning like, oh, I can actually have this second tier of communication via email where I can promote my episodes and things like that, but I can relationship build a little bit. So that's when I started learning the difference between just using an email to promote my latest podcast episode versus actually another educational piece and a connection piece. And that's when I started to learn different types of email marketing that I could do and I kind of developed my own style of how I like to do it. And that took probably about 2 or 3 years to kind of figure that out, experiment a little bit, get comfortable with it, to the point where I fell in love with the medium of writing. I love the written word and I love getting better at it. And I'm still working a lot to get better at it. That's why I love Thread so much. And yeah, so that was kind of my learning curve as far as learning how to write emails and kind of build a list.
Oh, that's a really interesting one. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now
Yeah.
let's get into this thing that has left me super excited. So, drum rolls, guys. Let me tell you this story. In 2025, and I'm reading this now, I threw away all of my email funnels and lead magnet. Instead, I started promoting my weekly podcasting business school newsletter as the lead magnet. Since doing that, I have added over 2,000 plus subscribers. Number one, funnels have never worked well for me. And two, lead magnets have never worked well for me. Now we have come to the tea for today. So let's dive right into this and how you made the pivot into how it is you do your newsletter today.
All right. So last year in 2025, I was feeling overwhelmed and I crave simplicity. I like creating what I call a minimum effective dose business. And I'm always looking for things that I can get rid of. Can I be on fewer social media platforms? Can I do fewer things in my business? Can I have fewer offers? Can I make my life as simple as possible? And a big reason behind this is I only work 3 days a week. I have a 3-day work week because I spend a lot of time with my family and my kids. And I'm very involved in the family side of things. So I can't have an abundance of things to do. So I'm always looking to trim down and do less, but better. So I got to thinking about emails. And one of the things I was overwhelmed with was like, I'm getting so many emails. I'm overly marketed to. And on social media, we're overly marketed to. And I listen to podcasts and I'm marketed to. And I was just like, nobody ever gave me permission. I know I never gave anybody else permission to send me like 52 emails in a funnel and then try to sell me something that costs 5K at the end. Like I never asked that. I just wanted somebody's checklist on their lead magnet. Like I want the little PDF. I want the checklist. I don't want 39 emails where you try to sell me every 3 emails. So I got to thinking about that. And it's like, I never gave anybody permission to do that. And they didn't either. They didn't give that to me. So why am I doing this? So that was one thought process of, is it possible to get rid of funnels? And then I started thinking about lead magnets because I was like, okay, if someone's on my email list, my goal is to have somebody that wants my emails. So if I used to have a scorecard, and I put a lot of people on my list with this podcast growth scorecard, but what they wanted was the scorecard. They didn't want my emails necessarily. Hopefully they grew to love them, but they weren't saying, I want emails. They were saying, I want the scorecard. So when I did an experiment to let all of that go, I took all my lead magnets. You can't even find them anymore. And the only thing I promoted was my newsletter. And my promise was that my newsletter will always be different than my podcast episode that week. So it's not just a promotion piece. It is an individual value add. And by opening that newsletter, you will learn something about podcast launch, growth, and monetization every single week. And it'll be really good. So that was my promise. And I was like, if people opt into my newsletter, what they want is emails. They want to open my emails. So that's why it's so different from a lead magnet. So I was like, let's experiment with this. It makes sense in my head. Let's see what happens. So I only started promoting my newsletter and my list just grew like crazy because it was just refreshing. It was an open and honest thing where I'm on my show every week going, listen, if you only listen to my podcast, you're only getting 50% of my best content. The other 50% is on Thursday morning in your inbox. And if you aren't getting that, you're missing out. So people started converting over. I've got one of the most downloaded podcasts about podcasting. So people started going over into the newsletter and my open rates shot up. Like I've got almost a 70% open rate with a 4,000 plus person email list because they all want my emails. So I'll pause. I can tell you have questions and thoughts. So that's how we kind of got to the point of no more lead magnets, no more funnels, just the newsletter, 1 email a week.
I find it really interesting, just the newsletter, 1 email a day. But the thing that really struck me is the fact that you said that the newsletter is like a value add on its own. So the podcast is 50%, and then the newsletter is like, a plus. But here's what I want to know. Does the podcast link back to the newsletter, and the newsletter, is it like a loop where each one is still pointing back to the other one?
Yes, on my podcast, I will use a call to action to drive people to the newsletter. And then in the newsletter, I will mention the latest episode of the week. But the topic, that's just a little tiny part at the end of the newsletter. By the way, if you missed this week's episode, here's what it's about. Link, Spotify, Apple. But the newsletter itself, the topic is always different. I do that on purpose because, the normal thing that podcasters do is they put out an episode. Let's say I do an episode about podcast growth. And that's the episode topic. And then a lot of podcasters will put out a newsletter that week that's like, it's just a promotion of the episode. It's like, hey, you need to go and check out the latest episode about podcast growth, or it's on the same exact topic. And then their social media, all the same topic. And I feel like that trains our audience to not want to consume it all. And I want them to consume it all. I want people to consume my podcast. I want them to consume my newsletter, and I want them to dive into all my thread stuff. So I don't do that. I do promote my episodes, but my content isn't only one topic focused each week. It's you're going to get a variety of things because maybe somebody is listening to the show and podcast growth isn't what they're focusing on. They're focusing on my podcast plus newsletter strategy or podcast monetization, getting clients. And that's what my newsletter is about this week. So that way you have different flavors and they can tag in and tap into the content that fits their need for that week.
When I saw your thread on threads, that sounds interesting. But when I saw it, I did see you mention this thing where you said, oh, my podcast title and my newsletter title are different. I just thought it was a thing of, switching the title. So similar like just what you just explained, but seeing that it's a whole different value add then that just has a plug into the podcast. I also find that really, really interesting as well because it's like multiple touch points, different content, but still complementing each other. Now, let's take this a bit deeper because I know that you said it was last year you switched to this model, right? But you'd been doing the whole email marketing and all of that. So, what was it like before, aside the lead magnets and the funnels? What was your sending reading like?
All right. So my newsletter before that, I never have just done a promo of the episode. I've always I want to deliver some value. So what I would do normally is like podcast first. That was the foundational piece of content, and everything built off of that. So I'd have a podcast episode, 5 tips on how to grow your podcast. What I would do with the newsletter is I would take 1 or 2 of those tips and write about them, and then go, if you want the other 3 tips, get them on the podcast. So the newsletter would be a part of the podcast content. And that still didn't incentivize them to want to consume both, unless they got the newsletter first. Then it would drive back. But I found it to be just as effective to write on a completely different topic and then just give them a teaser for the podcast. If it makes sense, they'll still go back. And now they're more incentivized to open that email. And the really cool thing is, now that I've built up this strategy and people have told me this, I am not great at subject lines. It's not my forte of like, ooh, this is a great hook. This is going to really get them. People tell me they open my email based off of the who it's from, me, versus the subject line. They see it's an email from me and they know there's value on the other side of that, because I don't send non-value, salesy, spammy emails. I just don't do it. So that has been a huge part of this equation and making that switch over.
I mean, this thing you said is always the goal, where you get people from opening emails just because of the subject line to opening emails because of who it is that is coming from. I have to give you a round of applause there for that particular one. Now, moving down to this, I would like to know what influenced the decision to say, okay, I feel like there's a rule of one playing out here, one podcast, one newsletter, one platform. But was there still something else that influenced your decision towards saying, I'm just going to do one newsletter per week? Because a lot of people struggle with consistency and finding a rhythm. And I mean, as email marketers, we give a lot of advice towards that. But yeah, I'll just like to hear your thoughts.
Okay. So let's talk about efficiency and how we use our time as content entrepreneurs. As a brand new content entrepreneur, so I started in 2015, just to put it all out there. I didn't make any money my first 3 years. It was so frustrating. I had a tiny audience. I made $37 total in my first 3 years of effort because I knew nothing. I had no writing experience. I had 0 followers on social media, 0 email list, and 0 podcast subscribers. So completely starting from scratch, having to learn everything. And that was really, really hard. Fast forward, I've learned that by simplifying things, through simplification, I can multiply. Simplify so that we can multiply. That's what one of my coaches used to tell me. Adam, you got to simplify so that you can multiply. So what I've learned, it started for me with social media. By giving myself permission to only focus on one social media platform, that frees up a lot of time because I don't have to worry about creating Instagram Reels and TikTok videos and Pinterest posts and LinkedIn posts and going live on Facebook. And like, people will do that, but that's why a lot of podcasters burn out, and content creators, they burn out because all these people are trying to be everywhere, but they don't get engagement anywhere, and it burns them out. They're like, oh, we almost feel entitled to audience growth and engagement because we're posting so much. And guess what? That's not how it works. Nobody is entitled to that. It's earned through your content, the value that you deliver. And that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. So by giving myself permission to only focus on one platform, and it can be any platform. I'm not saying Threads is the best. Maybe for you, it's LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever. That eliminates a lot of that extra time. I don't have to go and create content for everywhere. I just focus on that one platform that really works for me. I speak that language. So that allows me to spend more time with my podcast content, with my newsletter content. But here's the real magic, because I know what your audience is thinking. I know what you're probably thinking. is that consistency. That's a lot of creative energy every single week. So I want to give you my secret recipe. Is that okay if I give you a top secret recipe you just can't share with anybody else? Is that okay? No, you can share with people. I'm just kidding. It got real serious there for a second. I got the look. Like, oh no. I'm not sure if Dr. Sapphire is good at keeping secrets or not. So I'm just going to say, okay, we can share this secret. So I've got a content flywheel, and this is exactly what I do. And it can go in different order. I have clients to do this in a different order than what I do. But for me, it starts with the podcast episode. So let's say I have a podcast episode called 5 Non-Social Media Strategies to Grow Your Podcast. And so I'll put that episode out. And then about 8 to 12 weeks later, I will look at my notes for that episode, and those will inspire my newsletter 8 to 12 weeks later. Okay.
Wow.
So I've already got the notes, and it's been 8 to 12 weeks. So I've probably got new ideas, new thoughts, new opinions, and I can write. It's easy to write because I've already created that content once. It's always a little bit different, a little different flavor. So maybe I focus on 3 of them or 1 of them or whatever. It's 3 months later. So people aren't going, I just learned about this on the show. It's enough time for things to, people don't remember that. Then I just wrote all this great content. My platform on social media of choice is Threads, which is written content only. So I will take all that written content, I'll break it up into like 10, 15 Threads posts. But I don't take all those Threads posts and put them all out that week. The first little quote I find, I'll go, okay, that's going out next week. The next little quote I find, oh, that's going out in 2 weeks. The next quote I find, that's going out in 3 weeks. So my content on Threads is like a buffet of quotes from my newsletters for the last several months on lots of different topics. So that's how I'm easily posting on Threads 3 to 8 times a day, no problem. I'm easily cranking out a newsletter every single week. I actually send 2. I do a bonus email send, throw another idea at you. My newsletter always goes out on Thursday morning, and I write it in real time. Also, I don't pre-write it or anything like that. I don't batch write those. I sit down and write it in real time because that's what I love to do. Unless I'm on vacation, then I'll do it in advance. But I send a bonus email every Monday with 1 quick tip, but only to people that have opened my email in the last 30 days. Because I don't want to send that extra one to people that aren't opening my emails already, but the real, like, somebody's opening at least once every 30 days is pretty hungry for my emails. I just want to feed them some more good stuff. So that little bonus send goes out there. So that happens. That's the flywheel. That's the secret. That's how I stay really consistent with this and do it kind of easily because I've got systems in place. I think where people get into trouble with consistency is they're sitting down at the keyboard going, what am I going to write about this week? And then we hit that writer's block, which is a real thing, or maybe, a lot of people are doing this on the side. They have their 9 to 5 and they're trying to do this at 8 o'clock at night after their kids are in bed. And it's just like your creative energy is spent. So having a system like this really helps facilitate consistency because you're not having to start from 0 every single week. So I'll be quiet now. I gave you a lot there.
I mean, you did give me a lot there, and then you just inspired something that I think I'm going to be doing for podcast interviews moving forward. Because when you said the notes from your podcast, I'm like, that's true. When I record podcast episodes, I have a ton of ideas that, spin off from the conversation. So I should have a notebook because sometimes like I have like paper by my side. Well, it can always get missing and all. But I mean, he is the podcast business coach after all. So that's on the podcast side of things. But I love the idea that you have this content flywheel and this system. And it's really easy because it's like you're using what you have, repurposing it, and just like you're literally not having to think of anything from scratch because you've done that interview. Now you're picking from it, you're using it for the future, and then it just keeps going like that, like that, like that. Which is why a lot of people would say, oh, I don't know what to send. What should I say? And then when you talked about that bonus email, I really smiled because recently I actually started something similar that I was testing out for my list. So I called it the VIP circle. So for that one, they will have VIP and a red circle in the subject line, and then whatever it is. And then it's supposed to be for people who have opened at least 40% of the emails that they have received. No, is it for either 40 or 50% of the emails that they have received? So the idea is if this person is opening this amount of emails, then let's reward them for that. So give them insider information, extra perks. So when you talked about it, I really liked that idea of a bonus email and just giving them more value so they get this extra. But now I'm curious, do they know that they are getting this extra because they are engaged with your emails?
I don't say that in the Monday email. I'll mention it every once in a while on the show. Like when I mention the newsletter as a call to action, I only allow myself to have one call to action on my podcast each week. But I'll go, and now, this week, if you aren't, I'll do the whole thing about if you're only listening to the show, you're only getting 50% of the content, you need to check out my newsletter. And if you open my emails, you get a bonus email on Monday with a bonus tip. So I'll just kind of like mention it slyly in there. But yeah, it's not like a promoted thing on the email itself.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like the fact that people get to know even before they sign up that, oh, there's this extra thing that you can get if you are more engaged and more active. It helps to set expectations and then also gets to incentivize them to want to, will I say, do more, read more, just so that they are able to also get that extra thing, considering that they're already receiving a lot of value. Now, with this conversation, you already answered the questions I had around consistency and, just being able to keep up. And then I'm wondering, with the newsletter, will you say it is just one format one format or style, or you tend to change it every now and then or just freestyle with it?
I experiment a little bit. My main newsletter content style is like a teaching format. So it's always, here's a pain point. Here's the thing that you're going to learn. The specific writing style I use is, here is a pain point. Here's the way that most people try to solve this. Here's why this is wrong, or this is why this is the harder method. Here's what I want you to do instead. And if I'm selling something, I'll say, and here's the tool that will help you do this faster. And I link. So that's kind of the general teaching style that I do. In my Thursday newsletter, what I like to do is do a little warm open. And I mention this newsletter. The first line is, what's up, Pod Pals? This newsletter was lovingly curated at 8:42 a.m. Central Standard Time without the use of any AI, because I don't use AI for anything. And then I say what I just did. I usually just went for a walk and drank some cold brew coffee and had breakfast with my kids or something like that. And then, okay, let's dive into it. But first, here's a quick reminder. And that is like a little slot of free workshop I have going on, or a new promotion or something like that. So it's a little tiny promotion, couple of lines. Okay, now let's address the pain point of the newsletter. Let's call out what that is. I teach, then I highlight a client testimonial. I'm big on sharing testimonials. So I'll say my client Alex Molden signed up for my one-to-one consulting program. His results, and it's like a little quote from the client. Then I will dive into the podcast episode of the week. Hey, this week I released episode 625, where I talked about 4 questions the podcasters need to consider if they're creating a new offer. Check it out Spotify, check it out Apple. Then as I close out, I always like to say, if somebody forward this to you, here's the link you can use to subscribe to this email so you don't miss another one. Sign off, and then I do a PS, and I always have something in the PS segment. That's a really important area for me of discovery call link or whatever it is I'm promoting. I'll put that in the PS at the bottom. That's a pretty standard Thursday email. Monday is really simple. I go, here's one thing I wish I knew when I started. I teach on it, probably 3 paragraphs. And if there's something I need to link to, I'll link to it, and then I sign off. So it's a 3-minute or less read for sure.
Okay, okay. Now, before I go ahead and, dive into like my next question, we've been talking about this newsletter, what people get, what the standard is, and all of that. Now, your newsletter is for people who want to do podcasting. So they get simple strategies for podcast launch, growth, and how to get new clients with their podcast. So I know we've been talking about all of these, but how can they get on your newsletter? How can they also get to receive these emails, enjoy the value, see the style, and get to receive all the tools and everything that you're sending?
Yeah, so I've got the link on my main website, podcastingbusiness.school, or just go to the podcastingbusiness.school/news. And it's just a simple opt-in there. And that's That's the link that I promote everywhere I go. And it's that simple. And you won't get the only other email you will get other than my newsletter is a welcome email. You'll get one welcome. I don't even have like an opening sequence. Like I don't, because I'm like, why am I going to send you 6 emails? You just want the newsletter. So I will send one welcome email. Now, do you want to talk about my welcome email strategy? Because I do something different there. Can we talk about that? That might be of interest to your audience. Okay.
Definitely.
So with the welcome email, I've got 2 goals. I want to get you to reply, and I want to get you to click on something. Because if I get somebody to reply to me and click on a button, that will almost ensure that their email service provider, I'm in the good graces. I'm not going to end up in Spamsville or Promotionsville, because we don't want to end up in that promotions tab ever. So I welcome them. Say, hey, congrats, you just signed up for my newsletter. I want to know more about you. So if you would take a quick second and just hit reply with number 1, number 2, or number 3. What are you most interested in right now? Podcast launch, podcast growth, or podcast monetization? Just hit reply with 1 and just say 1, 2, or 3. And then I'll send you an episode that you can check out that's going to help with that. So I get all these emails every day that say 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then they start a little conversation and I send them an episode. So now they're on my newsletter and they've got an episode of the show to listen to. And then at the bottom of that email, I go, now I've been writing this email since 2018. Good news for you. I've got them all archived right here. Click on this button and go into my archive and you can check them all out. So now they've responded and they've clicked on something on a button. And now they're also on my website. So the whole cookies and all that stuff happens, the retargeting and all that stuff. So that's my goal. That's the only other email you'll get other than the newsletter itself is that little welcome email. And I set expectations. Hey, Thursday morning, this thing happens. It will be there. If it doesn't show up, call the police because I've been kidnapped. Like it will happen. Like I literally this is probably 3 years ago. I thought I hit send, but I only hit save. And I had people emailing and reach out. Are you okay? The news, it was like in the evening, like the email didn't come out. Are you okay? Have you been murdered? I don't know what like people were concerned with my safety because I'm that consistent. If it's like 10 a.m. and you haven't got that newsletter yet, it's time to start worrying because I'm that consistent with it. But I built that kind of relationship with my audience and they just know that that's a thing and they can expect that. And a lot of them are taking that little coffee break from work on Thursday morning and they dive into my email and learn a little something, reply, and they know that I will respond. That's the other thing. Nobody answers my emails. Nobody answers my DMs. I don't have anybody. I'm a team of 1. I don't even use AI. So it's not even like bot Adam. And so if you email me, I will respond 100% of the time. And DMs, same deal. I will respond every single time. And it's me. So I'm willing to put in that work to build those relationships. And that's something that people know from my brand and the way that I communicate.
I mean, I love how you've made everything so simple. Welcome email, 1 newsletter, 1 link, 1 reply. It is, I mean, this is awesome. And thank you for sharing that right there because I feel like this just gives somebody permission to just start. 1, instead of trying to do the whole 6, 10, 7. And even if they do want to add it, they can always add it later on. But at least they know they can just start with 1 and then take it from there. Thank you so much for sharing that. And everyone, to every of our listeners, the link to the newsletter is in the show notes. So in case you're wondering, instead of trying to go back to where he said it, just go to the show notes and click on it, opt in, and you would also receive the 1 welcome sequence, the 1 newsletter. And of course, if you open it, you get the bonus 1 as well. Simple, easy peasy. Now I'm now curious, right? Because we are doing 1, 1, 1. So what happens when you're launching, right? When you want to do like a launch, does the system change?
For me, no. Every once in a while, I would send 1 bonus. If it's a completely new program and I'm in like the final week and sales aren't where I want them, I might send a last day little reminder email, but that's really the only card is closing, last chance reminder, alarm bells type of thing. But otherwise, like my audience, my open rate is so strong. And I'm also marketing really effectively on my podcast. So they're listening, they're hearing the marketing each week there, the same call to action, and then 2 emails already, plus social media on Threads. That's worked enough well enough for me to be like, okay, I trust this. And I just built that trust with my listener base, my audience, that just kind of trained them too. Like they know, all right, he's not going to send me a ton of emails. So I got to pay attention, because when the cart closes, then we move on to the next thing. You miss the opportunity. But no, I try to keep it the same as much as possible.
Nice. Now, when it comes to the sales part of it, right? So, if you were launching a program, right, in that Thursday newsletter, or you wanted to sell in that Thursday newsletter, does the messaging of the newsletter change towards that thing you're selling, or what you're selling? You add it just like maybe a plug in, the same way you add the podcast, or how does it work when you are in that sales mode, so to say?
Yeah. So when I'm actively in a sales campaign, I like to do little 3-week sales campaigns. And I like to marry the topic of my podcast episode and the newsletter, if possible, to something that's related to what I am selling, or what I'm solving through what I'm selling. So if it is, I'm in an active campaign right now with a new one-on-one coaching program about helping podcasters build offers and then sell that to their audience, and like how to set up their own sales campaign. So I'm talking a lot about business-based topics, offers, pricing, discovering topics, and sales strategies on the show. So I kind of work around that content pillar, and then it's an easy call to action of, now, if this is something that you're really wanting to work on, the best way to get help from me is to do the blah, blah, blah new program. And then I talk about the offer a little bit. So I'll do that for 3 weeks usually. And I could go week 1 on the podcast, 3 strategies for monetizing your podcast. And it would be like affiliates, sponsors, sell your own offers. And oh, by the way, if you haven't created your first offer yet, my new program is what helps you do that. So I kind of lead into that thing. So it won't be just about that topic, but it definitely leads into what I'm selling. So yeah, I think you were on to me there. Like you knew I was doing this. So does it make sense, right? Like that's the beautiful thing about content, especially podcast content, is that people are scrolling through your feed and you can attract the exact right buyer with that title of that episode. Same thing with your newsletter. Like you send on that subject line, you can get the exact right buyer to open it if you call to the pain point that they need to solve in that subject line. So we should do that, and then add value. That's a big thing for me. I was just talking to a client about this. I work with some pretty big shows. One of my clients has 25 million downloads, and they have a huge team, huge marketing budget. And they're like, we're not getting any engagement on social media or emails. So I look through it. I'm like, this is all promotion. It's all promotion. Why would I click on this? You're just promoting and selling things, and there's no value. So I've got, I really freaked him out. And I'm like, we got to start adding value, like value driven content, and then build trust. And that will lead to more sales and more engagement, because that's my whole philosophy. I mean, it works. People right now in the world of AI and quick information and, an overwhelming amount of marketing and being sold to, if we can add value and build real human relationships, we've got a huge advantage. We stand out.
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm just wondering, like, which will you say grows your podcast more? Grows your newsletter more, right? The podcast which you're doing weekly, or the 3 to 8 threads you do on a daily basis?
I think it's a combo. Like, I really think people that want to grow their list, I feel like they don't talk about their newsletter or whatever it is enough. Even if you do lead magnets, like, I talk about my newsletter almost every day. And that's the nice thing though, Dr. Sapphire. If you've got 5 lead magnets, that's like so if you look at like a pie chart, you have that circle, that's a lot of slices. That's a lot of distraction. You're distracting your own audience. You know what I'm saying? So, oh, week 1, I talk about lead magnet 1. Week 2, I talk about lead magnet 2. Week 3, number 3. That's a lot of distraction, sending them off in different directions. What if you get the same repetition every single week, where I'm just going, if you're listening to the show and you aren't on the newsletter, you're missing out. It's only 50% of the content. And they hear me say that every single time. That's different than go get this lead magnet, then go get that lead magnet, then go, and they don't listen to every episode. So maybe they only, it just, to me, simplicity and directness of messaging and repetition are huge. And then on threads, a lot of times, like, so we're recording this on Wednesday. I like to go on threads on Wednesday, and put up some sort of spicy topic post and start to teach on it a little bit. And they go, you know what? I can't fully break this down, but good news is tomorrow morning in my newsletter, if you're on my list, you're going to get the full breakdown. So I preview it. I see it. I get the conversation started. I pump my brakes and go that beautiful link in my bio and go get on that newsletter, because tomorrow morning, come rain or shine, at 8:14 a.m. Central Standard Time, you're going to get that newsletter full breakdown. So I think we got to get out there and promote it. People are like, I don't like being salesy. I'm like, you're not selling anything. Your newsletter's free. It's free. It's my favorite price, free 99. So let's get it out there. And like, even if you don't like to sell things, you got to get a little bit promoting with your newsletter, but lead with value. And so here's what you're going to get. That's why I don't like the little opt-in box a lot of people have on their website. Get my newsletter. Well, why? Why should I get your newsletter? Because I want more emails? No, thanks. So like, what is the value on the other side of those emails? And that's, again, we gotta lead with that, preview it, and go, hey, this is what you're going to get when you do give me that email. In exchange for that, here's the value.
It's interesting that as you're saying this, I'm just thinking, oh, I can just go on Threads today and say, oh, I just had an interview with Adam Schaeuble, and he just broke down his full newsletter strategy. It's the craziest thing I've seen in a long while, and it's going to be out on the podcast on Saturday. I mean, the preview is just such an interesting thing, because then it creates anticipation, and then people know that they need to sign up ahead or whatever. I love the fact that you really emphasized on promoting the newsletter, because people don't promote enough. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just talk about it that one time, and then you just expect everybody should know that there's a newsletter in your link in bio. But I mean, they may not have seen it that one time, and it's so good. Now, I'm just curious as if this is something you practice with the strategy that you have ongoing, which is segmentation. I know you said you used to do it before when you were doing the whole tagging, but with the upgrading of the system, do you still segment your subscribers today?
I mess around with it. I get scared. All the analytics scare me, and I don't trust it as much. Like, because you hear like, oh, open rates can't be trusted. It's inflated and all this. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to think. So an experiment that I do, if I feel like my open rate is lowering, I'll do a little segmentation cycle where week one email I will send to the full list. The next email will be to people that have opened in the next 90 days. The next email, people that opened in the last 60 days. The next email, people that have opened in the last 30 days. And then I'll go back to the whole list and I'll see if open rates got a little bit better. And if they did, then I'm cool. Okay, let's start sending back. So it's almost like a rehabilitation of open rate thing. The other thing that really has helped me with my open rate is I got rid of all images. There's no images, no videos, no header banner at the top. And I feel like that has kept me out of the promotions tab nicely. So it's just text only. I do heavily use emojis though, because I'm 45 years old and this is what we do. We use a lot of emojis. Like that's the latest technology to us. The emoji, the sunglasses emoji. So that's how I roll.
Oh, definitely, definitely. This has been such a great conversation. Now, before we begin to wrap up, what's one email marketing myth? I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but what's one email marketing myth that you want to bust? Something people believe in, or they will die on, that you disagree with totally, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's the funnel thing. Like I really believe that we don't need to do funnels anymore. And here's the thing. Like Russell Brunson has made millions and millions of dollars making people believe they need funnels. Like a lot of the people that are like, you need a funnel are the ones that you can pay to teach you how to do funnels. So that's something to consider with the whole funnel building thing. So yeah, I believe that we get plenty of emails. We get more than enough emails. I don't know if we need to send more emails. So yeah, I think that less but better, and focus on that. And that's the hill I'm dying on these days.
All right, all right. So let's do a quick rapid fire. All right. I usually find this part really interesting, but now I want to spice it up because they're like doing a totally different strategy. But let's see how it goes. So I will start with the question that I asked the last guest I had. Paid wait list or free wait list? And paid wait list is somebody used to join a wait list, but then they have to pay like a part of the main fee, a commitment fee. And then the free wait list is the one that everybody does.
I do free wait lists. I mean, I kind of like the idea of a paid wait list. So maybe I'll do that next time, but I've only done free wait lists. So that's the only thing I can speak to.
All right. Long emails, short emails.
I do one of each. My Thursday is a pretty lengthy email and takes me about an hour to write. My Monday email is a pretty short email. It takes me about 10 minutes to write.
Okay. And this next one you can choose to skip. But what would you recommend as the best email marketing tool for newsletters?
Ugh. I mean, I use Kajabi and I don't think that's the best place to do it. It's just because that's the system that I'm in. I've got a lot of clients that love Kit and I'm very Kit curious. I've got a lot of people that enjoy Beehive a lot too. So yeah. So, I mean, I would probably recommend both of those over Kajabi, just the platform that I actually use. Hopefully that's useful.
Okay. So you mentioned that you're pretty scared of analytics, but what is one email marketing metric that you or what's the most important email marketing metric to you? The one most important one to you?
This is probably, I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest with you. And this is like probably the worst answer. I love looking at my list size. I do. I like seeing that list grow. I do. When I got over 4,000, I was like, I threw myself a little party. I'm like, oh, I worked so hard to get there. Like I worked so hard. That was a goal for so long, like 4,000. And the reason I came up with 4,000 is because there's about 400,000 active podcasts. I'm like, I want like 1% of those people on my list. That was how I came up with the 4,000 number. But yeah, I really like seeing that number go up. So that's what I'm obsessed over.
All right, all right. And I don't think it's like the worst answer because everybody's always going to have that one number that matters really. And contrary to popular opinion, a lot of people actually want their list to grow. Secretly, low key, everybody's looking for how they can get more subscribers on their email list. Now, this has been such an interesting conversation. I mean, I have laughed, I have had fun, and I have discovered new things. Now, because we have the podcast business coach here, I don't think we should leave this conversation without getting something for those people who want to do podcasting and email marketing. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is starting podcasting and also wants to bring in email into the picture, but isn't sure how to go about it?
Yeah. So I I would definitely look into that content flywheel, leveraging one piece into the other. I have some clients that are newsletter first, so they'll write a newsletter, wait 8 weeks, and they create a podcast episode about that topic. It works the same. So looking at some sort of a content flywheel, but to leverage the two types of content to build each other up. When I teach podcasters, a CTA is what we call a call to action. So the thing that we're telling our audience to do. I only let my clients have one call to action per episode, which includes like if you say rate and review this show, that's your one call to action. If you say follow me on Instagram, that's your one call to action. If you say email me with your questions, that's your one call to action. You can't, but what happens to most podcasters, we listen to the first 5 minutes of their show and it's like, rate and review my show, follow me on Pinterest, write me a letter, buy all my things, get my lead magnets, call my mom. Like it's all these things. So I only let them do one. So I recommend at least 30% of your episodes, if you want to use your podcast to grow your newsletter, your single call to action, at least 30% of your episodes, at least 1 out of every 3 episodes, it needs to just be go get my newsletter. Here's why. So if you really, really want to grow it, I would make it 50% of your episodes, your single call to action, because podcast listeners are doing something else. Newsletter readers are active. We get their face on a screen. Podcast listeners are riding their bike. They're taking their dog for a walk. They're driving their child to school. They're doing the dishes. They're cooking. They're working out. They're doing something else. So they're distracted. So if we give them more than one thing to do, they won't do anything for sure. But if they hear newsletter, show notes, it's in the show notes. Go in the show notes. When you're done doing your squats, look in the show notes. Bam. They click on it. And now they're on my newsletter. Now we've got a captive audience, face on screen. So those would be a couple of things that you could do to really simplify the process. And I think I really like the idea of your newsletter having independent value. That's not the same topic. I think that those three things should really help.
Thank you so much for giving us that. Now, can you let us know how our listeners can get to find you, get to connect with you? I mean, I know it's stress, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get on my newsletter list, just go to my website, podcastingbusiness.school. The newsletter link will be in the show notes. My only platform I'm active on is Threads. So don't like send me a LinkedIn message. And I had a guy I spoke on stage last year, and I had a guy come up to me all angry. And he said he emailed me. He goes, I emailed you. You never responded back. I go, I respond to every email. He goes, well, how often do you check your LinkedIn messages? I said, you said you emailed me, not LinkedIn messaged me. I'm like, I haven't been on LinkedIn since 1985. So I'm like, I don't like going on LinkedIn. So anyway, don't message me on LinkedIn. Just email me. Message me on Threads. That's where I hang out. I teach podcasting tips on Threads all day. And check out my show. If you listen to podcasts, you listen to a podcast right now. I've got 620 plus episodes of Podcasting Business School. I would recommend starting with episode 608. That's a really, really good episode where I talk about leveraging keywords and SEO for podcasters. And it's how I got over 1 million downloads of my show. So if you're podcast curious, check out episode 608 to start with Podcasting Business School.
I feel like you're a mind reader because I was literally
I
going
am.
to ask you about this. So just a bit of a deviation. But the two things I wrote down to ask you, you just addressed them during this conversation. So I remember when I was thinking of how to grow my podcast, everybody's talking about podcast SEO. And I'm like, okay. So I signed up for like two mini courses. One was like a 4-day challenge. The other one was like a mini program. And she's like, oh, for SEO, do this. And I'm like, okay. And then I did it. And then the other month, I think I did like the anniversary where I like promoted the podcast. But since then, I noticed that like sometimes like, it seems surreal. Like the number of I checked the downloads and I'm like, wait, this is like double the number of downloads I had before. And then at the beginning of last month, I was looking at it and I'm like, wait, why are we already near? This was like towards the beginning. Why are we already near the number of downloads we did last month? And then towards the ending of last month, we were like 100 plus downloads more than the last month. So you will just see the graph. So if this is like 200 and something, this one is like 379. And I'm like, wow. Like, is this still the SEO working or is this something else? And why am I seeing people from all manner of like, okay, guys, so just a bit of deviation, but I feel like this SEO thing works
It's
some
huge.
real wonders that I can't explain it because I was so shocked. So
Yeah.
episode 608 it is, guys.
608. It's the exact SEO recipe I used. I mean, I'm confident that's what got me over 1 million downloads. Like it is a discovery and a discoverability strategy that is so simple. And it starts with the first word in the name of your show. And we build from there.
Okay. So the link will be in the show notes. That's what I'll do for you all. So you don't have to go search for it. I will add the link in the show notes as well.
Nice.
So whenever you're done with your squats, driving, bicycling, the link will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for, coming on the podcast and doing this with us. It has been such a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Dr. Sapphire. And everybody listening in, a great way that you can leave a little tip in the tip jar of any podcaster. Head on to the app that you're listening on, leave a 5-star rating review and mention that this episode was your favorite one because that builds my ego. And you can even mention my name if you want to. That Adam was interesting. He was funny and I learned so much. And this was the best episode ever. But that's a great way to show your love for Dr. Sapphire. She's doing a great job.
Thank you so much for that. All right. Hi, Dr. Sapphire here. Thank you so much for listening to yet another episode of Email Marketing Experiments. I'm going to ask a favor. Please leave a rating and a comment on this podcast. It goes a long way to help increase visibility for our podcast so that we can reach even more people. Till next time, this is still Email Marketing Experiments. Think it, test it, and share it.